The Powells looked like the perfect family. Susan, her husband Josh, and their two little boys, Charlie and Braden. Their smiles and family photos seemed genuine, their arms wrapped around each other in a way that suggested closeness and love. To anyone looking in from the outside, they were the kind of family you might see in a magazine ad, the embodiment of happiness and stability. They lived in West Valley City, Utah, a quiet suburb where neighbors waved hello and families gathered for Sunday services. The Powells attended church regularly, blending seamlessly into their community. Their home was tidy, their children well-behaved, and their lives, at least on the surface, seemed to have it all. Susan was known for her warmth and her deep love for her children. She was the kind of mother who never missed a moment, always snapping photos, recording milestones, and filling the house with laughter. Her friends admired her devotion, and her boys adored her gentle, nurturing presence. To friends and neighbors, the Powell home was a place of joy, and the delightful chaos that comes with raising young kids. There were birthday parties, playdates, and the constant sound of little feet running through the halls. Laughter echoed from room to room, and the family seemed inseparable. But behind closed doors, things were different. The warmth that radiated from Susan seemed to fade when the cameras were off and the guests had gone home. The image they projected was carefully crafted, hiding growing tension and secrets that simmered just beneath the surface. The smiles in their photos sometimes felt forced, the laughter a little too rehearsed. Susan's bright spirit was dimming, her independence slowly eroded by the pressures and control within her marriage. She became more withdrawn, her once vibrant personality overshadowed by worry and exhaustion. The foundation of their family was unstable, built on control and fear, not love. Arguments became more frequent, and the sense of safety Susan once felt began to slip away. The world saw a happy family, but inside Susan was struggling. She tried to keep up appearances, but her pain was becoming harder to hide. The cracks in their perfect image were deepening, threatening to shatter everything they had built. The tension was no longer just a secret, it was becoming a fracture that could no longer be ignored. What seemed like a storybook life was, in reality, a house of secrets. The closed curtains and darkened rooms hid more than just a family's privacy, they concealed a growing sense of dread. The truth was buried beneath layers of deception, hidden in whispered arguments and secret journals. Susan kept her fears to herself, unsure of who she could trust. Sometimes the most beautiful pictures hide the darkest stories. The Powell family album was filled with smiles, but behind each photo was a story Susan was too afraid to tell. The Powell story was about to become a national nightmare. Soon, the world would see past the facade, and the truth would come crashing into the light. A family's carefully constructed facade was about to crumble, with consequences no one could have imagined. The secrets they tried so hard to hide would soon be impossible to ignore. The truth was waiting to be discovered, and the world would never look at the Powell family the same way again. On the surface, Josh Powell appeared to be a devoted husband and father, the kind of man who always smiled for the camera and played the part of a loving partner. To neighbors and acquaintances, the Powells seemed like any other happy suburban family, blending in seamlessly with their community. But those who truly knew Susan, those closest to her, began to notice subtle warning signs that something was deeply wrong behind closed doors. Josh's need for control seeped into every corner of Susan's life. He managed her money, dictated who she could see, and even scheduled her daily activities. Her independence was slowly stripped away, replaced by a suffocating sense of surveillance. Once outgoing and full of life, Susan gradually became withdrawn. She stopped attending gatherings, her laughter faded, and anxiety became her constant companion. Friends noticed that Josh was always nearby, hovering over her, steering conversations, and making his disapproval clear whenever she tried to reconnect with old friends or family. Financially, Susan was left with little autonomy. Every purchase was scrutinized, every dollar accounted for, leaving her feeling dependent and utterly trapped in her own home. In rare moments of privacy, Susan confided in trusted friends, sharing her growing unhappiness and the overwhelming pressure of Josh's suffocating behavior. She spoke of feeling invisible, unheard, and powerless. The emotional weight was crushing. Susan felt the walls closing in, her world shrinking with each passing day, as if she was living in a cage with no way out. Outwardly, the family continued to project an image of happiness and unity, but it was all a carefully maintained performance for the world to see. Behind the scenes, Susan was desperate for escape. She dreamed of freedom, But every attempt to break free seemed impossible, blocked by fear and uncertainty. The cracks in their marriage were no longer hidden, they had become dangerous, threatening to shatter the fragile peace that remained. The facade was splintering. Susan's struggle grew more desperate with each passing day, her hope fading as the reality of her situation set in. She often reflected on the life she once dreamed of, realizing that the world she now inhabited was not the one she had chosen for herself. To outsiders, Susan's smile seemed genuine, but inside, fear and anxiety ruled her every thought, overshadowing any moments of joy. The danger was real, and it was closing in. Susan's world was unraveling, and the threat lurking beneath the surface was growing impossible to ignore. Josh's obsession with control took a disturbing turn. He recorded everything. He filmed Susan constantly, often without her consent, turning their home into a surveillance zone. Susan felt watched, her privacy stripped away. Josh secretly recorded conversations, building a case only he understood. Susan, terrified, began documenting her own fears in journals and emails. She wrote a will, "If I die, it may not be an accident." She left a note in a safe deposit box, naming Josh as the threat. Susan was preparing for the worst, leaving clues in case she disappeared. She was living in fear, her every move monitored. Her desperate acts were silent cries for help. The home was her prison, and Josh was always watching. The sense of danger was growing. December 6, 2009. It was a cold, quiet Sunday evening in West Valley City, Utah. Susan Powell, a devoted mother and wife, bundled up her 2 young sons and walked them across the snowy street to a neighbor's house. She told the neighbor she and her husband Josh were planning a rare date night together. The boys, excited and unaware, waved goodbye to their mom as she left. That simple goodbye would be the last time anyone outside her immediate family would ever see Susan alive. The neighborhood, usually so familiar and safe, would soon become the center of a mystery that would grip the entire community. Later that night, Josh claimed he decided on a whim to take their sons out for a midnight camping trip in the freezing Utah desert. He packed up the boys, ages just 2 and 4, and drove out into the darkness, leaving Susan behind at home, supposedly asleep. The story sounded strange from the start. Who takes toddlers camping in sub-zero temperatures in the middle of the night on a school night? The next morning, Susan didn't show up for work. Her co-workers, who knew her as reliable and punctual, immediately sensed something was wrong. Calls to her phone went unanswered, messages were left, but there was only silence. Her father, Chuck Cox, grew increasingly worried. He drove to Susan's house hoping to find her safe, but the house was eerily quiet, locked up tight. With dread growing in his chest, he called the police for help. The search for Susan began almost immediately. Police, friends and neighbors canvassed the area, putting up missing person posters and organizing search parties, desperate for any sign of her. That evening, Josh finally returned home with the boys. He appeared strangely calm, almost detached, as he spoke to police officers waiting at his door. He told them he'd left Susan sleeping when he took the boys camping, but his story was bizarre and riddled with inconsistencies. Investigators pressed him for details, but his answers only raised more questions. From the very beginning, detectives sensed something was terribly wrong. The pieces of Josh's story simply didn't fit together. The timeline was off, and Josh's cold, emotionless demeanor during questioning sent chills down the spines of everyone in the room. This was not the reaction of a husband desperate to find his missing wife. Instead, Josh seemed distant, almost indifferent, as if he already knew Susan would never be found. The investigation quickly ramped up. Police searched the Powell home for clues, and suspicion fell squarely on Josh, the last person to see Susan alive. For Susan's family, the nightmare was just beginning. Grief and fear settled over them as they clung to hope, praying for answers that never seemed to come. The events of that night would cast a long, dark shadow over everyone involved, leaving questions that would haunt them for years. Susan was gone, and the truth was locked away behind Josh's chilling calm, a secret that would torment her loved ones and investigators alike. Inside the Powell home, investigators found unsettling clues. Susan's purse, wallet, and phone were left behind. She hadn't left willingly. 2 box fans pointed at a damp spot on the carpet suggested a frantic cleanup. A small reddish stain on the kitchen tile hinted at blood. The house felt scrubbed, sanitized, as if someone tried to erase evidence. Every detail contradicted Josh's story. He claimed Susan was asleep, but the scene told a different story. The evidence pointed to violence, not a peaceful night. The empty house was a silent witness to what happened. The clues left behind all pointed in one direction, toward Josh. Susan hadn't walked away, she had been taken. The home held the secrets of that night. The truth was in the details. From the start, Josh Powell was the prime suspect. His story was flimsy, his behavior odd, and the evidence damning. Police searched his home, van, and computer, finding thousands of secret photos of Susan. Disturbing content painted a picture of a troubled mind. But without Susan's body, prosecutors struggled to build a case. Josh stopped cooperating, hired a lawyer, and played the victim. For 2 years, the case stalled. Josh remained free, moving away with his sons. The investigation continued, but the trail grew cold. Susan's family was left in agony, while Josh hid in plain sight. He was a suspect but never a defendant. Justice for Susan remained out of reach. The answers were just beyond grasp. The case was stuck in limbo. The darkness in the Powell family ran deeper. Josh's father, Stephen, was obsessed with Susan. He kept explicit journals, spied on her, and filmed her without consent. Police found thousands of illicit images and videos, including of neighborhood girls. Stephen was arrested for voyeurism and child pornography, exposing the family's sickness. With Stephen in prison, Charlie and Braden were placed with Susan's parents. For a moment, the boys seemed safe. But the danger wasn't over. The family's troubles were far from resolved. The custody battle for Charlie and Braden pushed Josh over the edge. On February 5, 2012, during a supervised visit, Josh locked out the social worker and attacked his sons. He set the house on fire, killing himself and the boys in a horrific murder-suicide. Moments before, he emailed his lawyer, "I'm sorry, goodbye." The explosion ended any hope of learning the truth from Josh. The tragedy devastated Susan's parents, who lost their daughter and grandsons. Josh's final act destroyed his family forever. The case became a national tragedy. The last chance for answers died with Josh and his sons. The horror was complete. The secrets of that night would never be fully revealed. The loss was immeasurable. More than a decade later, Susan Powell is still missing. Her body has never been found and her case remains open but cold. Susan's story is a chilling lesson in hidden abuse and coercive control. She tried to leave a trail, but her voice was silenced. Her parents, Chuck and Judy Cox, keep her memory alive and fight for victims of domestic violence. They hope for answers, for a chance to bring Susan home. The search continues, not with police, but in the hearts of those who loved her. Susan's story is a haunting reminder of the monsters who hide behind normalcy. The final chapter is unwritten. The question remains, where is Susan?